50 of them with Burgoyne's army. So the Reserve Corps had about just short of 600 officers and men, and as I said, they're all commanded by a guy named Bryman. Now, Bryman's camp was built here between the battles of Saratoga. What they did was they set up a log wall, kind of a zigzag back and forth, much more zigzaggy than you see here with these white and red posts, but it ran across the front here. 2 cannons were located facing generally northwest, as you see the cannon there, and wrapped around, and then you see the wayside exhibit with the bench. That's about where the fortification line ended. You see the last white and red post right behind the bench. That wall was perpendicular with another log wall that was built along that tree line over there. It was perpendicular to it, but it wasn't connected to it. In fact, the 2 walls were separated by about 80 yards. Further, they had to build a little square-shaped fortification on the hilltop to the front because, well, there's a hill which has an elevation which is higher than the elevation in this fortification right in front of it. Kind of stupid. Where are the Americans camped, by the way, at Bemis Heights? That way. So if the Americans were to attack from their camp, imagine that, they'd be coming through that area theoretically, and it's open. There's no back to this. There's no wall back there to it. In fact, the guys who garrisoned this fortification, their encampment was behind the fort right here. So pretty much where the parking lot is today, down there, that's where their camp was. It was exposed back there. A huge hill in the front. What? Weird. But, you know, they thought they would solve the problem by garrisoning the French-Canadian militia over there. It's hard to see, but there are 4 posts times 2 in that little vale over there, and that's where they had these log cabins. And so they assigned the French-Canadian militia, 1 company per cabin, 50 men per cabin. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had an essential place to defend, I would not entrust it to the only soldiers in Burgoyne's entire army who were drafted, the French-Canadian militia. Everybody else, redcoat, German, they're all volunteers, or they were soldiers already in the already existing army, so they weren't like, you know, they might not have expected to go to America, but they were soldiers, and they knew that they might have to fight someday, because they're soldiers, that's what they do. But these guys, they were drafted by the British government in Canada because they needed to have a couple hundred French-Canadian militia troops with Burgoyne. They first looked for volunteers, and only the officers volunteered, but the men didn't. None of them did. So they actually had to draft them up. So these guys are drafted men. And according to the letter of one of the German officers who was located here in the Bryman Redoubt, writing to a friend of his between the battles of Saratoga, literally he would have written it from his tent theoretically, right down in the parking area. He said that, describing the fortifications set up here, and he goes, you know, the French Canadians over there, I don't trust them. They're undisciplined, and they don't have a military bearing to them. So he was not very keen on trusting the defense of that gap to them, but that's what the British decided to do. That's how the setup was.
How come the Americans did not come through? Is there like a ravine come right from their camp to here? Or?
They kind of did. When you see how the battle plays out, they really came at it from all angles, including the open back. They did indeed. Are there any questions about this fortification, the troops here, before we go to check out the battle? Okay.